welcome to Romantic Wednesdays with Poetry. I'm Alisa Agnes, your host, and I believe it's time to get real and spill some tea or coffee. So today I have a totally new cycle. It's the 12th one. It's called 7 Days Poetry Challenge. And well, at first let me tell you a few words about this concept, but maybe if you've been following me on Instagram and now it's called X, then maybe you already know these poems because I wrote them during the pandemic and I was posting those short poems on my social media. And right now what I want to show you is a bit changed than that previous version because I realized that during the process of translating these poems, which were originally written in English, so during the process of translating this into Polish, I realized that some poems got longer and a bit different than what I originally wrote, and I thought maybe I'll add those lines in my English version as well. And those added lines were literally added just before recording this podcast episode. So it's a very fresh thing and you're the first ones who can hear more about this. So during the pandemic I had an idea to write poetry every day for 7 days, and I just wanted to do something during the pandemic, not to think about those sad times. And sometimes I wanted to do something funny, and I think a few times I got something, I hope kind of funny, and sometimes I had more ideas when just one per day, and that's why this cycle is made of 9 poems, such short poetry pieces, and they are very random, but they were created for this challenge, and that's why it's all this one cycle about which I'm talking about for you today. So okay, after such a beginning, I think it's time to read you the first poem, and later I will tell you maybe 2 sentences about this, and later I will read you the next one and a little commentary, and we will go like that today until the end. So that's the first poem. You're a warrior, honest true artist, white kind of behavior, braver than Bilbo Baggins. So this poem was inspired by my dear friend, my I don't know how to call him for you, but he's a man and he knows that I'm talking about him. I guess he's smiling right now when he hears me saying this, and while he inspired this first poem, and I tried to describe who he is, and I thought that he's a very brave man who is a very honest artist, and what I mean is putting truth in their art, and sometimes they don't feel like talking about this kind of truth that is hidden between the lines, but it doesn't mean that his art isn't honest in such a very specific kind of way. And also I thought that he's kind of wild sometimes, and also there is a reference to Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit, and the Lord of Rings. And in 2020 I was writing my bachelor's thesis, and it was about fantasy genre, and I just had references to such classic fantasy books like those by Tolkien. And that's why I also mentioned this name here in this short poem. And also such a additional thing, he visited that village that appears in those movies, so I guess he took this poem very personally. And so now I will read you the second poem, which was also kind of inspired by this one of a kind man. So here it is. Yellow sun, yellow rose, yellow canary, this inverted paint. So this poem is about three things: about the sun, about the rose, and about a little bird which is called a canary. And they all have one thing in common: that's the yellow color. And I wanted to be clever, so I was like, these all things are yellow just because of this inverted paint. And it was such a short funny concept, and I kind of like it. And as I've said, it was inspired by my man because his favorite color is yellow. Yep. And I guess he's smiling right now once again. But it's all that I can tell you about this poem, and this is where, for now, this kind of inspiration ends, because next poems will be a bit different. So here's the third poem. Mother said, warmth smells still. I replied, your side also will. So it's about a conversation with my mother. She kind of by accident said something like warmth smells, and I decided to turn these short words into a, I hope, funny kind of poem, where I try to call such things that are rather unusual, because there's such things that don't have a smell. Well, and it's about senses, and I just wanted to be funny. I don't know if you find it funny, but for me it's kinda what it is. So now the fourth poem, which is a bit longer, and this is one of those poems which I just improved because of my Polish translation. So here it is. I'd rather watch a good film than get a fancy bag or go outside, but some snacks are good too. So what it's about? Well, it's about comparing some things and values, and I was like, people were in 2020 suggesting some bags and some fancy stuff, and I was like, I don't want these things. I'd rather watch a good film. And this thought turned into this short poem, which got longer because I wrote such a rhyme kind of poem, and I wanted to put some of those ideas into this translation, because it's in half, written in English, and in half it was the, the translation of the Polish poem. So that's why this whole book, it's important for me to say that some things were written in English or in Polish, and some things are original and some things are just translated. And it's this kind of mix in my book, and this poem is a really good example because it's in half an original English poem, and in the half it's the translation of the Polish version. So those fresh lines were like, maybe sometimes we don't feel like going out, but I really like going out. But in the situation, it's like comparing that maybe we don't have to go to the cinema because we can watch a good film at home as well. These times changed a bit because of those streaming services. And I wanted to add this here, and also, what is better than getting a fancy bag? Eating something tasty, some snack, maybe made of sesame. I mentioned this thing right now because I mentioned sesame in the Polish version of this poem. But well, that's all about this fourth poem, and right now the fifth one. People need something to believe in, even if it's nothing. So it's another, I guess, kind of deeper idea, because it's about the need to believe in anything, and it can be about God and about other religions where you have literally gods, but it can be also about just not believing in anything. But I believe that this kind of believing is still a believing. So yep, this is what this poem is about. So now the next one, the sixth one. It's even shorter, but it's once again a bit deeper. So, for sure, waves beat the shore. What more do we know? So these two lines are about the idea of not being sure what what we really know, and some things can seem like it's the truth to us, but for other people it may not be so certain. And then I was like, then what kind of knowledge is something that we can be absolutely sure about? Well, these waves beating the shore, this is the only thing. And this is what kind of deep thought is hidden in this poem. So as you can see, some days I was like, I wanted to write something deep, and some other days I just wanted to write something funny. And the next one is another funny poem. It's the seventh one. Marzipan, chocolate, fog, sugar daddy kissed a frog. Candy dreams, sugar fright, sugar man invented diet. So it's about something sweet. It's about marzipan, chocolate, about sugar, and about a man. Guess who inspired me once again? Sugar man, sugar daddy. It's not about money, it's just the reference to something sweet, and it's about candy, as you can see, and it's about the idea of inventing such a sweet kind of man which can be compared to such sweet things like candy, chocolate, marzipan. And well, the last word of this poem, died, is not about dying, but about using the paint. So it's the reference to the beginning as well. And in 2020 I also bought such a nice shirt, and it was this kind of it's also called died, but I don't have words for this, but this kind of clothing kind of inspired me to write such a sweet kind of poem. So we slowly get to the end, and the next one, the eighth one, is a bit longer, and I think it's a bit deep and a bit funny at the same time. So here it is. Lollipops in the sky, gold dripping on mountains, golden hour, mountain of gold, gold rush, robbery of a bright day. So the first line is a little reference to the previous poem about some sweet things. So I kind of compare mountains to lollipops, and it's also about golden hour and the idea of golden hour. I mean, this kind of way that light falls on earth, and it makes everything look just golden. And this kind of image inspired me to write this poem, and I think it's the main idea. But we also have here the phrase gold rush. It's about gold, but it's literally about gold. And where do we find the gold rush when we think about the history? Well, in mountains. So it's another such reference, a little bit historical. And last lines of this poem, robbery of a bright day, it's the reference to gold rush and to the golden hour at the same time, and to this picture where you can find mountains. So this is what this poem means and what inspired me. So now I just have the last one for you, the ninth one. I think it's probably the saddest one, and it has a story. So here it is. I would have held him in my arms forever, until they came for him. He said, "Let me go." So I stayed alone. So the last day, the seventh day of my little challenge, ends with this kind of story. I'm a writer, so I wrote such a story which was kind of inspired by my real life as well. It's about a man, the same man as in those previous poems. So it's about this kind of moment when someone comes for him and he just leaves you alone, and he says, "Let me go." But now, after 5 years, I can tell you such a thing, that he now says, "Don't let me go." So it's I think the reference to this poem, to this situation and this moment we were in 5 years ago. And it's nice that he remembers about my poem after all these years, and he says now, "Don't let me go." So it's I think a beautiful message after all these years. And this is how I want to end this episode right now. So right now you know everything about this cycle. So right now I can only tell you what to expect in the next episode. So the 13th one is something totally different than all that you could find in this book, because you know we're slowly getting to the end, and it's just this one cycle and the next one. You know, these two are the last two cycles of my book, of the second volume, and you know the 13th one is called Prose Written Poetry, and it's made of few short political stories. So in the next episode I'd like to tell you more about the first two titles, Poets, Gifts and Sailor. Maybe you already know Sailor because I added this poem as this short story as a part of one of my first YouTube videos. So maybe you already know this one. But you know, it's also, I think, one of the best stories that I have ever written, and I'm really happy to begin this kind of adventure next week. So this is what you can expect. Thank you so much for listening today, and maybe check out my store and blog. You can always find something more out there, and well, I think that's all right now. So until the next time, yep, bye.